So just to reiterate, we're in chapter 5, the second half of the chapter this week.
Is exercise 7 or, oh wait, on your module?
I think we're in 8, yeah, it's week 7, but I think it's exercise 8 at this point since we
Yes.
have 2 exercises last week or the week before? Week before. Okay, so in the first half of chapter 5, we learned drafting from a sketch or an image, and so the second half is more about drafting based off of an AutoCAD file or a DWG. So there are a few things that you can do to prepare an AutoCAD file for import so that it doesn't slow your model down too much, because AutoCAD files can have a lot of data associated with them. So we want to try and clean them up as much as we can so that it doesn't start to slow down our SketchUp model. So a few things that we can do, and I'll just start off. The one that we're going to be, that's provided for you today that we're going to be sketching off of, that one's already cleaned up, so we're not necessarily going to walk through cleaning it up together, but we'll just talk about steps that you can take to clean it up. So before you actually import the DWG into SketchUp, some things that you will want to do, these are all listed in your reading, but in AutoCAD you can run the purge and audit commands just to clean up any old data that might be in that file that we don't really need. You can delete any unused layers that are in AutoCAD. You know, maybe there's a bunch of geometry that you don't necessarily need to be brought into SketchUp. Just try and clean up as much of that as you can. Take out any unused layers. SketchUp does automatically discard any sort of text or dimensions, hatches, anything that isn't really relative to a 3D model. So any of that stuff it's going to automatically take out. So either whichever way you think about it, fortunately or unfortunately, you can't get any text or dimensions from AutoCAD into SketchUp. But then what you also can do, explode all of your polylines, arcs, filleted lines. These often have lots of geometry in them that SketchUp doesn't really care for. You can remove all of the textures or XREFs or other imported files from AutoCAD, any dynamic blocks. Those are definitely going to bog down your model. So try and clean up all of that stuff. Make sure that your AutoCAD file, all the lines are nice and connected. That's going to help you with, we can actually use the inference engine whenever we pull AutoCAD in. SketchUp can actually read that as geometry. So you just want that file to be as accurate as possible so that when it gets translated into SketchUp, it is still as accurate as possible. And then finally, try to keep your AutoCAD file or your DWG smaller than 15 megabytes. If it's any bigger than that, SketchUp might have an issue importing it. So just try and keep it as small as possible. And then when you're actually in SketchUp, there are a few more things that you can do to clean up the AutoCAD file. We can, again, from here, purge any layers that came in, because any of your layers, data, all that good stuff is going to come in to SketchUp with the DWG. So we can purge out any layers there as well. We haven't gotten into layers just yet in SketchUp, but in SketchUp, layers are called tags. And there's a tags panel in your default tray. So if there are a bunch of layers and tags that you don't want, we have a little details arrow over on the right, similar to, I think we talked about the details of the components. There's also a purge option here, just like how you can purge components, you can purge different tags that might come in. And then you can also get rid of any unused data by going up to Window, up in your menu bar, Model Info, and Statistics. And this kind of tells you everything that's currently in your model. You can purge unused, and anything that's not being used it'll automatically get rid of. So that's just another step that you can take to clean up your model.
Where was that?
How did you get in there?
This was in Window on the menu bar,
Okay.
Model Info,
Oh, modeling.
and the Statistics option. This is a good thing, even if you're not working with a DWG. Still a great idea to come in here every so often and purge those unused items just to keep your model nice and healthy. But definitely a great option right after you bring in a DWG so that you can deactivate that. Yeah.
Oh, and then all you have to do when you go to that is hit purge unused or fix problems.
Yeah, purge unused is gonna just erase everything that's not being used in your model.
So should we purge what we've done so far? So it looks like I have like 17 materials and things like that.
Those are probably defaults that come in through SketchUp. Even if I get purge unused right now, those aren't going away. So to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure how it knows what's unused versus what is needed. But I should actually find out what exactly that is. But it is a good way to keep your model clean. It looks like you can even switch it between your entire model, or you can only look at components. There's Teddy, we love our girl. But yeah, that's an option. Okay, so that's pretty much all we're really gonna talk about. I think we should just go ahead and get into the assignment. I didn't ask, were there any questions from last week that we wanted to go over?
Maybe I'm the only one. Can you show us how to?
Okay, so then let's go ahead and look at tonight's assignment. In week 7, we're on exercise 8. So we're drafting a plan from a CAD file. So the very first thing you want to do, go ahead and download this DWG file. You just hit the little download button right next to it.
Does that stand for drawing or doll?
DWG, I assume it stands for drawing. That's the AutoCAD format. Okay, so download that. We don't need to open it. Like I said, I've already cleaned it up. It's a very simple file. So then back in SketchUp, we'll go ahead and import it. You import the same way that we did for a JPEG. So it's the same process there. We go up to File and Import.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we are already lost.
No, because I don't
Yeah, mine doesn't look like
I don't get
download
that
it.
part about download it into,
It just downloads to your desktop.
because it didn't
Mine doesn't.
download to mine.
When I hit on import, then a little box came up that said import results.
Yeah, you could close it. You're good.
Oh, okay.
Do you,
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do you all have this little arrow button right next to the floor plan? You just hit that little button and it'll download to your computer.
I'm sorry, what was it again?
In that exercise 8.
Oh, is it the one that says floor plan?
Yeah. Oh, so you're still download.
Okay, but then you just put it,
We're gonna import
oh,
in SketchUp.
but what did you do?
I just downloaded it from the Canvas
Yeah.
exercise, and then I came over to SketchUp.
Oh,
And
okay,
I'm hitting File, Import,
okay.
and then go navigate to where that floor plan downloaded, probably just in your downloads folder. And we can just say import. And it gives you a little box. It tells you what all it's bringing in. So it tells you there are 3 layers, 5 arcs, 84 lines, yada yada, whatever. It also tells you anything that's been ignored. So like we said, text, dimensions, anything that's more of just 2D information, not related to the actual model geometry, those things are going to be ignored. Okay, so I hit close. Oh my goodness, that's huge.
It is huge.
This whole thing. Huh.
That's bad?
Well, it should come in. at the right units. It worked last night when I tried it, but that's okay, we can resize it. We know how to resize things. Sure.
That's a very lucky doors.
Okay. So, usually it should come in with the correct units. I must have done something wrong when setting up the AutoCAD file. So I'm using my tape measure and it says 240 feet, that should only be 20 feet. So, the way we do that, we can use our tape measure to resize, right? That's gonna resize the entire model. That's okay for me at this point because I've only got the one thing in my model, so I'm okay with resizing the whole model. So with my tape measure tool, I click on 2 points of a known dimension. So I'm gonna click on just maybe this top left and the top right, and I'm gonna immediately type 20 feet, enter. Because that's what I want that length to become, is 20 feet rather than the 240 feet. Asks me if I want to resize the model, I'm going to say yes.
To 20 feet. And did it do it?
No, it did not. Great.
Yeah, it didn't do
This
it.
day is really good for me. Alright.
Oh.
I have a great day at work, and of course this is not working for me. That's okay. Let's see here, what else could we do? We could try the scale tool. Let's see if the scale tool is gonna work for us.
No.
It should. Let's see, if I click on that, I grab my scale tool, or you can hit S on your keyboard.
So click on it first.
Yes, you do have to select the item first.
Oh, shit.
And then use your scale tool. Oh, let's see here, do I know? Let me see if this option works, because I don't necessarily know what that scale factor is. I can do the math, but it's easy to do the math. So let's see if I can draw a 20-foot line. Let me try this first before I tell you how to do this.
Okay.
No, it doesn't want to do that. Let's see if I can figure out the scale factor.
So could it be?
Huh?
I
I was trying to do that too, but mine wasn't working like that. Okay, so I did fix my import, just by changing the units whenever I imported the CAD file. So let's do it again so that you can all fix it without having to scale it down.
So delete it.
Yeah, go ahead and delete it, let's try it again.
So when it's in your file already, do you just click on it, open it as a group and then delete?
Yeah, you can just select it and hit delete.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'm going back up to file and import. And then go ahead and click on that floor plan, but before you hit import, go over to options. And it lets you specify the scale. So it probably says model units right now. Typically, you should be able to do that. I don't know why it's being messed up right now. Let's change it to inches, because for some reason it's translating feet and inches differently. Probably something to do with AutoCAD. I'm not very good at AutoCAD. So then I hit OK.
When you said right click.
So you're just going to options. Select that floor plan DWG file, hit options.
Re-download it?
No.
Oh.
Wait a minute.
Oh, there.
You say go to options.
Yep. And then on your units, change it to inches.
Oh,
Hit OK.
but leave import materials.
Right.
Okay.
We're not messing with any of the other things.
That's it.
Import.
And then hit import. And now it should be at the right size.
Yeah, way
Because
too
my
much.
tape measure is
So-
now 20 feet across.
Options,
Yes,
model units, inches.
yes, change it from model units to inches.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yay.
Unsure why that happened. I can probably do some research about it, it's probably AutoCAD, me not knowing how to use it.
Yes. No, I just have a question. I think I clicked the wrong, so it's the architectural meters or is it inches or is it?
I usually use inches,
Inches, okay.
either architectural or simple.
So if I just downloaded what you just, if I refreshed and just downloaded a new one, I should be fine?
You
I didn't
deleted,
change it.
you deleted the old one,
Okay, so
right?
I missed that, so I
So just,
how do I-
close out, reopen,
Did
and,
you-
and when you click import, there's a tab, instead of hitting import, hit options, and you go from.
Yeah, you should be able to use the same DWG that you already downloaded.
Okay,
We're just gonna re-import
Now
it.
reopen SketchUp, and then import again.
Okay, so when it does import, it comes in as a component.
Option.
So I look over my entity info whenever I clicked on that, and it came in as a component, and it just gives it the name of whatever that AutoCAD file was named. So I'm just gonna keep it inside of the component. That's nice, it stays all grouped together for me. You can, just so that you know for future reference, you can right click and explode this and it'll return to just individual edges and surfaces and all that kind of stuff. So SketchUp reads AutoCAD files, it translates them into just faces and edges, just like if we had modeled this. I don't really want to separate it into individual edges because again, that stickiness is gonna start to take effect. And if I wanna start drafting off of this, I want my walls to be separate from my doors, separate from my windows. So if all those lines are together right now, I'm already starting off with
Draw them on.
issues.
Yeah.
so explode it.
No, don't.
Oh,
I was just showing you that you can, but we don't prefer to explode it.
so we are making it a component?
It should already come in as a component when you import it.
Look under entity info,
Yes,
It'll
that'll
say-
tell you it's a component.
component one and model.
The entity info is in your default tray. If you don't see your default tray, go to Window, Default Tray, and Show Tray.
Is this one? I don't see anything that says it's. Oh,
So then we'll go to step number 2, and a lot of these steps are gonna be really similar to last week. But this week we don't have to draw out our guidelines and measure everything, because we can just draft from the AutoCAD plan. We can use the inference engine just like we normally would to be able to draw accurately. So on step number 2, we're gonna create the floor surface. We'll draw a rectangle across the entire area of the house to get the floor. So I'll go ahead and start with the rectangle tool. I hit R on my keyboard. And with this file, we can be really accurate. We can find those corner points, end points, exacting just as though we've modeled these in SketchUp. So that's what's nice about AutoCAD files, is you can be super accurate with your measurements and tracing. So I'm gonna start just at one of those corners and bring my rectangle down to this opposite corner to create my floor surface. And then I'm gonna double click on that floor surface to grab the surface and its edges, right click, and make a group. And then I'm gonna double click into that group that I just created so that I can edit it. I double click into the floor group, and I'm gonna push pull that surface down 1 foot. So I hit P on my keyboard for push pull, select that surface, bring my cursor down, and type 1 foot, enter.
See, it makes it.
So you said you had to highlight all the lines first before you can make it a group?
You want the surface and the edges of the surface. We're not selecting the AutoCAD file.
Oh.
So now we have the AutoCAD file in its own component,
Time.
and we have the floor in its own.
Oh, the thing the rectangle we just drew.
Right,
Down.
that's the only thing that's going into
Down
4 foot.
below?
And that's the group, and it's, you said make it a group called floor plan, right?
Groups don't have names.
Oh, okay.
The component will have a name, so that's still our AutoCAD file, and then we created a rectangle, made a group from that rectangle, extruded it down 1 foot to create your floor surface. And then you can go ahead and click away from that group to close out of it.
And so it should be underneath it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Step number 3, we're gonna trace the DWG file to create the walls. So you can use the line tool, rectangle tool, a combination of both. We're just going to trace over all of these lines so that we can create some walls. Don't worry about the door and window openings just yet, just like we did last week. You can go ahead and draw right over those. We'll use the same method as last week to create those door and window openings, so just focus on the walls right now. And just like we did last week, if you want to, you can change the color of your lines. Actually, that might not be as helpful this week since these lines will also change color, so that they would all be the same anyway. So maybe ignore that comment, that might not be super helpful.
I had a question. When you said don't worry about the doors and windows, do you mean go ahead and go over them and just erase it later?
We're not gonna erase it later, but right now we're just gonna draw right over
Right
those
over it.
openings.
Okay, I just
Yes.
wanna make sure.
Oh, go straight through it.
Right. So I'm gonna use my line tool right now, and I'm just gonna start to trace over these lines. Again, make sure you're not inside of your floor group. So we're gonna start to build a new group here. We're gonna go over all these walls, and then make sure you get the inside perimeter as well. So I'm drawing right over those doors, just ignoring where those are. I can even use the rectangle tool for some of these rooms that are more of a rectangle shape, square shape, make it a little bit faster on myself. And don't forget this little column here in the bottom right corner. We're gonna go ahead and trace over that guy too. So now, I'm gonna go ahead and, you don't have to do this, so I'm just showing you what you should be left with as a result of what we just drew. I'm gonna go ahead and hide my floor group. And I'm gonna hide that AutoCAD component. So this is what we should be left with after what we just drew. You can see I traced around all of the walls, exterior and interior, and I got that column down there in the middle too. Unhide those things.
I don't even know where I left off. How do you see where you left?
Yeah, that can be kind of tricky if you're tracing over things. Maybe you can hide your AutoCAD file too, just so that you can.
Oh, how do you hide it again? You say?
You just select the AutoCAD. Might be kind of hard to get to it, and then right click and hit hide. And then if you don't have hidden geometry, hidden objects on, you'll be able to see what lines you've drawn so far. Okay, and then once we have all of that, we saw that there were some surfaces created in here because SketchUp says, hey, you gave me a closed loop, I'm gonna go ahead and throw a surface in there for you. And you see that flashing taking effect, that Z-planing that we talked about last week. So we don't want those surfaces right on top of each other, we've already got floor. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select those new surfaces. that were created inside of the rooms and delete them. Because I still have my floor. Right now, I'm just trying to get the walls. So then now we're at step number 4. That was part of step number 4, delete the surfaces inside the rooms. And then we're going to select, I still have a surface for the walls themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that surface, and that'll give you the surface as well as all of the lines that are bounding that surface. And then I'll right click and make a group. Oops, I forgot the column. Let me Control Z to undo. So I want to double click those walls, and then I'm going to hold down Control and double click the column so that I get that column in there too. So now I have the wall surface, all of those edges, the column surface, all of those edges. Now I'll go ahead and right click and make a group out of that. So at this point we don't have any loose geometry. We've got our original AutoCAD component, we've got a floor group, and we've got a wall group. Which leads us to step number 5. We will extrude the wall. So we're going to double click into that wall group we just created so that we can edit it. And then we'll use the push-pull tool to find that wall surface. It's a little bit difficult to see. But once you can see that dot pattern coming over that surface, that's when you know you've got it. So select that, and we're going to push-pull this upward 10 feet, enter. And same thing with the column. We're going to push-pull that to 10 feet as well. A couple things you could do with the column. Now that I've just done these other walls to 10 feet, if you double-click, the mic is since I just did this, so do 10 feet again. If you immediately double-click that column surface, SketchUp will basically redo that same command. It'll say, oh, you just extruded 10 feet? I'll go ahead and extrude this one 10 feet as well. So you can do that, or I just Control Z to undo that column push. You can grab that surface and use the inference engine. So I just clicked, I'm not dragging. You can align that push-pull to the top of those other walls. Just kind of hover over those other walls and it'll align to that same extrusion. Or of course you could just type in the 10 feet, redo the same command. But we're going to be left with both of our walls and the column being at 10 feet. Step number 6. We're going to add those door openings. So this is going to be super similar to the step that we did last week. We're going to navigate to the inside. That's where I can see my door swings a little bit easier. So I'm just going to create guidelines on the surface of the wall so that I can figure out where those doors go. So I'm inside my wall group still. We want to be able to edit these walls, so I need to be inside that group to do so. I'm going to use the tape measure tool, T on your keyboard. To create a guide line, you first click on a line that's already created. So I'll just go ahead and select maybe this corner here. Start to pull my mouse outward. And then I'm going to align that to the edge of the door here. So I can use that inference engine again to hover over that door opening and click to place that one. And then I'll select that guideline I just created so that I can start to create a second guideline. And again, I'll hover over that opposite corner of the door and click to place there. And then I tell you in the assignment that the height of all the doors is going to be 7 feet tall. So I will click on the line for the bottom of my wall here. Start to pull upward. Again, make sure that we're on those axes. Make sure that you're Seeing that blue arrow coming up with you, and then I'll type 7 feet, enter. And then from here, we're just gonna use the line tool to trace over those guidelines so that we can separate this door opening from the rest of the surface of the wall. So I'll hit L on my keyboard to grab the line tool, and then just trace over these points. Again, be very accurate, make sure you're finding those intersections, tracing along the guidelines. And then when you finish that, as long as everything's nice and straight, you should have 2 separate surfaces created on that wall. If the surfaces it's still one surface, either something's messed up with the lines that you created, maybe one of them wasn't quite straight, one of them's not touching the wall. So if you're not seeing that, go ahead and try and redo that tracing of your lines. But once you do have those 2 separate surfaces, we're going to select the door opening with the push-pull tool, push it through to the opposite side. It'll tell you when the offset is limited to 6 inches because that's the thickness of our wall. So you can just click to bring that through. You can also select the door, swivel yourself around, and align it to this back edge, and that'll also make it disappear. Or you can type in 6 inches, and that'll automatically push it through. Whichever way you want to get there, you should have a nice opening here for the front door. And we're going to go ahead and do that for all the other doors as well. So we've got a door here into the bedroom. It'll be easier if you are looking at it on the side that the door swing is at. If I'm looking at it from this side, it's a lot harder to tell where that door is. So let's find the door swing. Again, I'm still inside of my wall group. What would happen if I weren't inside my wall group? So I just clicked away from it. If I went and did all that same thing, I'll just make it really quick here. So if I'm not in my wall group, here's my surface I have created. But then that wall group is all still its own surface too. If I just try and manipulate this here, it's not working. It's not going to push that through to the other side because those 2 geometries are isolated from each other. They don't talk to each other if they're not in the same group. So make sure you're inside that wall group so that we can edit those walls. So I'll do the same thing here, tape measure tool. We'll line up with the edge there, be nice and accurate, find that endpoint, and the opposite endpoint as well. These doors are also going to be 7 feet tall. And I'll use the line tool to trace over all of that. And push pull to the other side.
I have a question.
Yes.
I had a hard time just tracing it because I got lost, and so it seemed like I didn't create a tracing really of it yet. Is there a way to see what you've already done if you traced it? Or do you just start all over? I figure I'm going to start all over.
Are you talking back from tracing the walls?
Yes.
I have the same question.
I would try hiding that AutoCAD file,
Oh, okay.
and so then you'll only be left with what you have actually modeled.
So to hide, I don't know, I hit that Control Z a couple times, so just hide the AutoCAD file. What
Yeah.
do you do?
Go ahead and select the AutoCAD file.
The whole thing, right?
Yep, you only need to click on one part of it since it's in a component. If you just select one part of it, that
Okay, then
selects
it's
the whole
selected,
component.
okay.
And then you right click that component and hit hide.
Okay.
And then when you want it to come back, so once you hit that, you should be able to see what lines you have
It
drawn.
seems like I only have like one square, but it's an inner square.
Maybe that's all you do.
I guess I had to.
You can also hide that floor group, maybe your lines are on top of that floor group as well.
And then to get back to the AutoCAD.
When you want those things back, you go up to the View tab on your menu bar and check Hidden Geometry and Hidden Objects.
Oh,
And then everything that's hidden should show up in dashed lines.
yeah.
So then you can go ahead and select it, right click and hit unhide.
Mine doesn't look like a trace anyway.
It don't. I don't know what's going on.
Alright,
I'll wait.
Alright, let me do some of these other doors. This looks like it's probably a bathroom. Go ahead and make my guidelines. And trace over. We've got 4 total doors. There's the front door, the door into this small room that I would guess would be a bathroom, a bigger room, which I would guess to be a bedroom, and then I think we've got a closet door here as well. They're all 7 feet tall. Don't be afraid to scroll in and out, get really close, make sure that you're being accurate to what part you're selecting or aligning to.
Why does that door have 2 arches and the other door only has 1? The other
It's
door.
just a double door.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so when you're reading a plan, this is typically how you'll see door swings. You see the thicker part of it, that's the actual door, and then this arch is just showing the swing of the door, the direction that it opens. Okay, so then once you have all of those pushed through, we can go ahead and delete all those guidelines. We can do them all at once by going up to Edit and Delete Guides. And then we're going to do the window. There's only one window in this courthouse. You only get one source of natural light. So this is step 7. Basically the same thing. Although this one, it's a little bit harder to see where that window is because our wall is right on top of it. This is where the X-ray might come in handy again like we did last week so that we can see through these surfaces. So 2 ways to turn on X-ray. One of them is by going up to View, Face Style, and check X-ray. Now I can see where that window is. The other way to get to X-ray is over on your Styles panel in your default tray. Hit the Edit tab, navigate to your face settings, that second box, and click on the little X-ray box there. Either way, now we can see through those walls. Get back into my wall group here. And again, I'm just going to create those guidelines with my tape measure tool. So I'll click on a line that's already created. And I should be able to inference engine here. So I'll hold down Shift, make sure that I'm staying along that axis that I want. And there we go, now I can align myself with that edge here. Click on that guideline so I can create a second guideline. And find that opposite side. Okay, and then my instructions in Canvas on step 7 tell me that the sill is gonna be at 3 feet above the floor and the head will be at 7 feet above the floor. So we'll go ahead and create those guidelines. Starting from the bottom of the wall, we'll create one 3 feet up. And then an additional 4 feet from there.
How much was the window into that wall? From the door?
The width of it,
Yeah.
well, you should be able to use your inference engine to click on that line there. Make sure you stay across that red axis and then align your mouse to the edge of that window. So it turns out to be 2 feet, but you want to align your cursor to that edge to make sure you're nice and accurate finding that edge there.
Yeah.
And then I'll go ahead and use my rectangle tool to trace over all of those guidelines I created. And then push-pull that surface through to the other side. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my X-ray, either again through your styles panel or from the view, face style, and uncheck X-ray. And I think we can also delete those guidelines that we just created up in edit and delete guides.